Hi, this is Bastiaan, and this is the revisitation of my pet line against the Sicilian. And I'd like to start out with a problem faced by one YouTube member named Wild Things Fail, who's encountering the following issue. So, we're going to start out with the typical setup. And here we have seen three possible continuations. That's d6, g5, so both of those pawn moves are designed to undermine the pawn center of white, and d5, the Tal Gambit declined. So d5 and g5 are popular defenses. When d6 is played, I continued the first videos with the knight development move knight to f3, after which pawn takes pawn, knight recaptures, pawn recaptures, and then perhaps queen to d4 to prevent castling, attack the pawn, leading to the development of white of the bishop check, bishop d7, and queen development. But if we take it back, of course black doesn't have to recapture the pawn. Well, things fail is encountering issues with the follow-up g5, which just shows you how popular these defenses are, d6 and g5. But when both are played at once, indeed it is not mentioned in the scope of the first videos, and white must handle the situation differently. So the difference is, if we check out the g5 defense once again, we're noticing that the queen is covering g4. There's no protection of a bishop because d6 hasn't been played yet. Also, there's no knight blocking. So in this situation, white can play d3 because the only thing under attack is the pawn. Then g4 makes no sense because there's no knight under attack, and the queen can simply recapture. So that's how g5 should be handled. But this all changes when d6 is played first, because if d6 is played first and white plays knight to f3 to cover the e5 pawn, we notice that now the g5 move has the possibility to kick away the knight. G4 is allowed because the queen is no longer covering it. Black gains tempo with an attack on the knight, and the square is protected. So in normal continuations, let's say if d3 was played, like if things fail has played, the pawn can advance, kicking away the knight. Knight must flee. Pawn is being protected by the attack, for the attack of the queen. And now the issue is there are two attackers on the pawn on e5 and no longer two defenders. So pawn takes, pawn recaptures, knight takes pawn. So this is clearly not the way to proceed in this defense. So what should white try? If white sees both g5 and d6 being played, and white has played the knight on f3, making g4 available for black, black should instead remove the threat and attack the pawn on g5. So d3 shouldn't be played. Instead, pawn takes pawn. Notice that once again there's a double attack on the pawn on e5, but this time it isn't as hard to defend against, because if, say, pawn takes pawn, which wasn't played, I can play bishop to b5, neutralizing the knight, defending the pawn on c6. So if bishop to g7, for instance, to keep protecting the pawn, I can play queen to e2 to continue attacking the pawn. Notice that a pawn defense move compromises the king's safety. So if bishop to e6, let's say a random move, I can play knight to e5, or I can even play knight to c3 to continue development. If another move like e4 is played, there are very few options for black. I can simply take the pawn, create an attack on c6. So if bishop blocks, I can castle. If knight to a5, I can play knight to c3, e6, knight to e5, and we can see the attacking opportunities for white. If bishop takes, knight takes. If bishop takes knight, queen takes, and we can see the rook being trapped. Knight to b8 instead. Queen takes pawn, attacks the rook. Also losing for black, of course. So defending the pawn with bishop to g7 doesn't look like it's going to work. Instead, black can try e4, attacking the knight. But now white can play knight to e5, and this move is now available because of the pin on the knight. And now it's white's turn to attack the knight on c6. So if bishop blocks, again bishop can take knight. Then if pawn recaptures, we get queen to e2 to counterattack the pawn, after which we can attack the pawn on c6. So if bishop to f5, just an example, to protect the pawn, I can grab the pawn on c6, or I can even play rook to f1, which will kick the bishop away. So knight takes pawn is a possible continuation. If bishop takes bishop, I can play rook to f1, immediately attacking the pawn on f7. Notice that moving the pawn will still compromise king's safety because of the possibility to capture the pawn with the g5 pawn. In this case, it will even lead to queen h5 mate. So pawn takes pawn, and then pawn takes pawn on e5 doesn't seem to work. If black tries h6 to get rid of the pawn first, which is possibly the best engine move, white can play g6 and continue to undermine the king's safety. If bishop to g7 is played, adding another attacker on the pawn on e5. White should play bishop to b5, pinning the knight. Now if pawn takes, queen to e4 will lead to the same setup as before. If knight takes e5 instead of pawn takes e5, white no longer has the possibility to create a pin. This move was played in the game. So knight takes, pawn recaptures. Now there are a few continuations. I play queen to h5. Black plays bishop to g7 and bishop to c4, targeting the f6 square. Notice that it's difficult for black to defend against with this pawn. Black tries e6 to block the diagonal. I castle, again renewing the threat on the f7 pawn. Queen to e7, again protecting f7. Notice how much issues black has to develop the knight, which prevents him from castling kingside. Queenside, there's a huge gap, which will leave the king unsafe. I develop with knight to c3, bringing another piece into the attack. Now, if say e4 were to be played, I can play knight takes pawn, a6, and rook takes pawn on f7. So it's difficult for black to free up the bishop. h6 was played instead. So I continue with knight to e4, looking to bring in another piece. Black grabs the pawn, attacking the queen. But now queen takes pawn on f7, check. Queen recaptures. And I get a fork between king and queen. King to e7. Knight takes queen. Rook to h5. d4, looking to break open the defense of the king. So black simply recaptures, but the king is less safe now with only one pawn protecting it, which is already under some form of attack. So I play g4, attacking the rook. And basically there are no good moves left for the rook. So if rook to h3, for instance, I can play knight takes pawn, attacking the rook. Rook moves, and rook to f7 forks king and bishop. If rook to h7, we get the same problem. So rook to h4 was played, which allows bishop takes pawn, check, attacking the rook and the king. Bishop blocks, and we get an exchange sacrifice instead. g5, which locks the bishop out of the game. And at this point black resigns. So that was my game against the e6 and g5 defense using the pet line of my Sicilian. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.